A bit of context. I just got off a Christmas lunch with my colleagues, so I was still wearing black sculpt long sleeve, blazer on top it, and dress pants, and went straight to shopping for my mother-in-law's Christmas gifts yesterday at one of more upscale Canadian supermarkets that sells a wide variety of goods starting from food and finishing with high-quality clothes and fancy home appliances decor. My mother-in-law has a very particular taste, so I was taking my time to go through all the comfy clothes and beautiful home decor that I think she would love. I probably did at least 5 laps around each aisle to see if there's anything worth buying. I'm normally an extremely resilient person after working in hospitality for nearly 10 years, but our local Christmas shoppers seem to get the worst out of me. Here comes our main character. Let's call her Barbara. I normally don't care about other people wandering around stores and mind my own business, but I couldn't help but notice my homegirl Barb right away. She came off as one of those classic entitled women in their early 50s walking around with her nose up, caked makeup with brutally uneven scarlet, red lipstick, dressed like a retired hooker with a dirty blonde ponytail, reeking of one of those musty perfumes that you could smell from 5 aisles away. Barbara and I had spent a good chunk of time wandering through aisles in close proximity, and she consistently felt the need to leave nasty remarks about almost every piece of clothing she happened to stumble upon. I finally had enough of Barbara's presence and silently moved on to the home decor section, hoping that she eventually finds another atrocious piece of clothing to add to her wardrobe in peace and leaves by the time I'm back to the clothing section. Nobody owes me anything, and I just let people be unless they start directly bothering me. So I'm back at the clothing section in about 20 minutes. I don't spot or smell Barbara anywhere, so after a deep sigh of relief, I continue exploring. The piece didn't last long. Excuse me? Someone screeching from, quite literally, across the store, from the food section that's right next to the clothing one. I don't pay any attention to it visually and just make a mental note, as there are dozens of other people in the store. Reminder, Christmas shopping, and I've already drained too much time and energy at that store by then. Hello. Excuse me. I finally turn around and see Barb looking in my general direction while she's still at least 50 feet away from me with about a dozen of other customers standing between us and staring at her with nothing but confusion on their faces. At that point, Barbara was getting on my nerves, so I just followed by increasing my distance and walked around an aisle hoping to create some sort of visual and auditory barrier with her. She finally stomped all the way to my back and yelled practically in my ear in the most unbearable voice, "Ma'am, where did the beer go?" I turned to her and asked right off the bat, "I'm sorry, but why are you asking me?" Barb, with a shipment container load of attitude, "Well, don't you work here?" Me. I, in fact, don't. She instantly loses her aggressive confidence and looks like a deer in headlights for a moment, no less. With some sort of disgust in her face, she then starts rambling something off about me being dressed in my uniform, which made her assume that I'm an employee at the store. Needless to say, no employees at that store, except for the owner, had ever dressed formally. Neat? Sure. Formal? Don't think so. It's also not my fault that your clothing taste doesn't let you differentiate between a corporate uniform and a formal dress code, but that's a whole different conversation. Despite of the disgusting attitude and snarky remarks she kept throwing at me, I told her that as far as I know, they've removed all the alcohol from the store about a year ago because it kept getting stolen, and they had no means of controlling it. Before I've even finished my sentence, she was already on to the next person she assumed was working there. She had finally found a staff member who told her exactly what I told her. I was never so relieved to get the hell out of the store. So, you won't believe the craziness that went down on the bus yesterday. Picture this. I'm just chilling, headphones in, talking to my primo in Spanish. We're catching up, shooting the breeze about the latest, Anyway, this Karen, the epitome of I want to speak to the manager vibes, is eyeballing me from the moment I step on the bus. Like, lady, I just want to get home without any drama. You feel me? But nah, she's on a mission. I slide into an empty seat, still chatting away in Spanish. It's no big deal. People do it all the time. But Karen, she's having none of it. She shushes me like we're in a dang library. I give her the side eye, but I keep my cool, No need to start World War III over a phone call. Then, out of the blue, she snatches my phone. Can you believe it? I'm thinking, what the actual heck? My primo's still on the line, probably wondering if I got eaten by a chupacabra or something. But Karen doesn't care. She's on power trip. She starts ranting about how this is America, and we should all speak English. Like, lady, calm down. I'm fluent in both English and Spanish. I can throw some Spanglish at you if that makes you happy. But no, Karen's not having it. She's screeching about how I'm ruining her precious American experience. But before I can even blink, she whips out her elbow like she's auditioning for the WWE and cracks it right into my rib. Ugh, I'm talking major ouchies, my dudes. Now, I ain't one to start drama, but this lady just crossed the line. I look at her like, what the actual F, Karen? She's huffing and puffing like she's allergic to Spanish or something. I said, why did you do that for? The whole bus goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. And let me tell you, that's when things got spicy. Out of nowhere, this dude in the snapback stands up and he's like, yeah, you can't just be elbow dropping people because you don't like their language. That's not how we roll here. It's like the hero the bus never knew it needed. Karen tries to play the victim, like she's the star of her own telenovela, but nobody's buying it. The bus driver's looking at her in the rearview mirror like, you done messed up now, Karen. She starts babbling about how it's her right to speak English or some nonsense. I'm just nursing my rib thinking, lady, I'm not trying to steal your English muffin recipe. I'm just chatting with my amigos. And then, oh boy, a whole chorus of people starts piping up. It's like the United Nations of bus riders all saying, nah, Karen, not today. The vibe on that bus went from awkward to a full-blown protest. People were recording, others were telling her off, and a couple of folks were legit chanting, Karen, go home. Finally, the bus driver's had enough. He radios for the cops. Karen's face goes from anger to pure panic. She's realizing that her little power trip is about to land her in the slammer. The police show up, and Kern's still trying to argue her case. But the bus is like a united front at this point. We're all telling the cops how she snatched my phone, started a scene, and even laid hands on me. Homegirl's still trying to argue her case, but the law ain't buying it. The whole bus cheers as she gets cuffed, and someone yells, Adios, Karen! It was like the end of a movie where the villain finally gets what's coming. I ended up giving my statement to the police, feeling like a witness in some crazy courtroom drama. But you know what? Justice was served. The bus became a symbol of unity against Karen-esque shenanigans. I swear, it was like a movie script, but with more sass and fewer explosions. About 4 years ago, I was hired as a contract to hire for a position at a major IT storage vendor. I put in my 2-week notice, but then got called by the account manager stating that EMC pushed back my starting date a week. No biggie, I end up getting a week off work unpaid. So I close out my 2 weeks, and on Thursday, I'm supposed to start the following Monday. I get a call from the manager of the contract house stating that there was some fraud involving my position and that it didn't exist. I'm like, what the F? They explained that the contract manager basically made up the positions in the hopes of getting paid. Additionally, he ran up over $10K on the company credit card. I told them they'd be hearing from my attorney as it was not my fault they didn't have proper checks on their staff, and my job was with them, not the end client. My attorney contacts the contract house's insurance company, and they won't start negotiating until my losses can be calculated, landing a new job. So I started my job search in earnest. In addition to looking for a new gig, I began doing some work around the house, pulling up carpeting, painting, and installing a new laminate floor. Fortunately, and since I knew I'd land a job and I'd get paid for my time off, I was able to borrow some money from my parents to get the stuff done. I start Googling the guy, and of course I find him, on an offender tracking system maintained by our state. I dig a little deeper and find he has an extensive criminal history dating back to the 80s. I start a new gig a month later while my attorney starts negotiating with the contract house's insurance company. They lowball me and I tell them to pound sand. When I forward the information about the contract house hiring a convicted felon, my pay for the job I left, the expenses I incurred, and some smooth words from my attorney about having a sympathetic jury because I left a job I had and was now out of work thanks to negligence on the part of the company they were insured by. They settled for the time I was out of work, which was a month, COBRA, the pay at my new contracted rate, and miscellaneous expenses related to job seeking, Part of the agreement was that I would not speak ill of the contract house. And I won't. I really don't have any issues with them as they were honest about their screw-up and made good with me. I paid off my parents with the check. I contacted the contract house again and spoke to the manager. At this point, since things are settled, he apologizes and says that they've changed their procedures, including background checks, as well as fraud checks on their corporate cards. He said the city wouldn't prosecute since the losses weren't large enough or verifiable. I point out that I was out of work for a month. He tells me I'm not the only one. There were 15 other people that were victims of this guy's fraud, and 11 of them put in their notice at their current jobs, including one guy that had moved from California back to the Midwest. The revenge. At this point, I'm mad at this guy. I personally am very good about finding work, but many of these people may not have been so fortunate. He screwed up so many lives with his fraud, and for the recruiting firm, they only lost money. I checked this guy's LinkedIn profile a month or two later, and I find he has a new job as an account manager at another recruiting firm. I call the recruiting firm and tell them the story as well as providing them links to his offender status. The manager tells me he just started 2 weeks prior and he was in orientation. They fired him immediately. He lied on his resume. They didn't perform a background check. They wondered why his resume listed as 8 HR generalist at the state prison, not knowing he was in the state prison. I'm all for giving people another shot, but this guy has an extensive criminal record with multiple convictions for fraud, theft, bandit, including a band after the entire mess with the last recruiting firm, not to mention multiple stays in state prison. This story came from my friend's husband, Adam, and yes, this is Belle's husband. Belle's my retired Army officer friend. Adam worked as a police officer from the late 90s, early 10s until being injured in the line of duty. One December evening, Adam was finishing up his shift when Belle, who he was dating at the time, called him asking if he could pick up a couple of last-minute things for a Christmas party. Since the Mart of Walls is about a mile away from the station, Adam decides to go there. He's wearing a thick dark blue coat over his uniform, complete with vest, belt, and gear, including his sidearm, radio, handcuffs, and baton. He's in the dairy section getting some cream when he heard a woman say in a low voice, "Excuse me." Adam turns to look. There's a young woman, maybe college age, dressed in jeans, a thick coat, and heavily pregnant. Definitely not the Karen type. "Can you please help me get a TV from the back?" Adam is about to use the classic "I don't work here" lady line when he sees the fear in her eyes. Now on high alert, he leans close to her and whispers what happened. "I'm scared of my husband. He just shot the officer who pulled us over." Adam looks up and sees this strung-out looking man who looks like he hasn't showered in days and watching them with, as Adam recounted, shark eyes. Thinking fast, Adam says loud enough for the man to hear, "I'm more than happy to help you, ma'am. Let me page the back and we'll get it in a minute." Hang tight. Using his cell phone, which wasn't as common as it is now, he texted fellow officer who was still on duty, asking her if an officer got shot. When she confirmed it and asked what was going on, he told her what was going on, to alert the manager and to send a couple of units to the store. She responded to him that the units were on the way. The manager had been alerted and to hang tight. Once he received her text, he said, "It's on its way to the front. I'll personally escort you there so the manager knows who it belongs to." So he leads the family to the front and makes eye contact with the manager. The manager, who recognizes Adam from previous excursions, comes over. Adam, keeping up the charade, says to the manager boss, "I think it'd be good to get the lady off her feet for a little bit while we get the car loaded." He said with a meaningful look, "It's going to take several minutes anyway." The manager nods and says, "Of course, come with, ma'am. My office is just this way." Once the lady and the manager were safely away, Adam and the man head out to the parking lot. Just then, Adam spots the officers getting out of their cars and nods at them. The takedown wasn't as dramatic as you'd expect it to be. They recognized him and arrested him as soon as several outstanding warrants for his arrest were revealed. The officer the man had attacked survived his injuries, and the man got a nice long prison sentence for several charges, including attempted murder. The lady filed for divorce and, with Adam and Belle's help, was able to get home to her family. Last Adam heard, she was doing well. When she heard the story, Belle, as she put it to me, knew I met the man I was going to marry someday.